Kia ora koutou, ko Michelle Impey tōku ingoa. I am based in Auckland and 20 years, close enough. I've been in New Zealand 20 years. I'm originally from Canada and have been in this role most of the time. So this is a little misleading. I've got 10 minutes. There's no way I can cover what's going on nationally. So I'm not even going to touch on all of the cool things that are being done, predator-free, limited zip, et cetera. There's so much happening on the innovation, technology, new traps, new lures, new everything. That's not me. I'm going to focus a little bit on the initiatives that Save the Kiwi is involved in particular. And I say national-ish because as an organization, our role is to support Māori-led and community-led conservation groups. And by the very nature of people who have kiwi in their backyards, that's on the North Island. So we have a very strong North Island focus. So I'm going to narrow that down to this. I've had 2 double shot espressos, so I'm hoping this is going to help me get through it quickly. Yep, next one. I'm also used to using speaker notes on PowerPoint, so I'm going from memory. We'll see how we go. So when I started, I always like to say our org chart was a square. It was me. And we had Wendy Sporrell, who was doing this work as a volunteer long before she joined our organization. This is about 6 months ago, our organization. So we've grown quite a bit, along with, I guess, the whole effort out there with kiwi conservation. So we now have our own Kiwi Egg Incubation Center. We operate 2 different creches. We're all grown up. We have a proper fundraising manager, a comms and marketing manager, a regional coordinator in every region. And I'm really proud of Māori engagement team as well to really help us as an organization move into that space. This is our vision, from endangered to everywhere. I love using this photo because it usually gives Hugh kittens. We don't really want kiwi in Albert Park in Auckland. How amazing would that be if we did? But this is, I guess, for us as an entity, we hear a lot of talk, I guess, in conservation about persistence, managing species for persistence. And for us, it's about abundance. So I think Emma's going to touch on the change in threat status that was announced just before Christmas last year for North Island brown. And to me, it's a little bit of an academic exercise. It doesn't change what we're doing. We did not wake up the next day and go, yay, North Island brown kiwi saved. So this is what we're going for, abundance, well beyond the 2% target that we have for growth. Just real briefly with our involvement into Tai Tokoro. So this is really, I think, where we have a lot of our strong foundations. Northland is different, you're right, Nari. It's exceptional here, the kind of collaboration and the community-led work. You guys have kind of always led the way from what I've seen with community conservation across the country. So we had Wendy Sporrell initially, Clea Gardner, and now Emma Craig. We get a little bit of her in-demand time. So across the regions on the North Island, we like to have a person on the ground that knows those groups, knows those people to help us. We've put in just under $2 million in grants via our contestable funding cycle. That's a drop in the bucket for what's needed and what's come into the region, but I think it's been a pretty critical drop for some projects. And we, like a lot of people, got a huge shot in the arm a couple of years ago with the Jobs for Nature funding. So we were able to land a $19.7 million funding package over 5 years. And more than 10 million of that is going into projects protecting or supporting Northland brown kiwi in particular. So Honeymoon Valley, predator-free Purirua, which Nari touched on, and the Forest Bridge Trust, which have a huge project area in the Kaipara from the east to the west coast. We also have a love-hate affair with dogs, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we're dabbling in on that. Next slide. So one of our initiatives that we launched about 3 or 4 years ago, Kohanga Kiwi, and Megan mentioned as well about looking at a kohanga. So just really briefly, it's how we're defining it is really intentionally stocking a few pest or predator-free sites that are geographically confined. So we use Operation Nest Egg, collect eggs from the wild across a very genetically diverse range of sires. The chicks to a predator-free site can go on at 4 weeks of age, ballpark. So they go there, they will live there permanently, form a breeding population. The site starts to grow over time, and you remove the juveniles that would otherwise be unable to establish a territory and use them to create new populations in the wild or supplement existing ones. So another, I guess, arrow in the quiver of how we can grow kiwi conservation. So we have 2 sites at the moment that we're focused on, Sanctuary Mountain Maungatautari in the Waikato and Motatapu Island in the Hauraki Gulf. So far we've put, I don't have the exact figures, Tunica might have close to 400 kiwi between the two sites over the last 3 to 4 years. So this has been a super intensive ONU program to fill those sites up. Motutapu, we're probably about halfway there. We had a little bit of a pause with a stoat incursion over a couple of years. Maungatautari, though, we are complete the first phase of this program. So we've got a couple more kiwi to trickle in there for genetic reasons. But phase 1 is done. We're ready. The kiwi are ready to start moving them out. And the scale that we're talking, we could move a couple hundred kiwi out this year. That will probably grow to, we think, about 500 or 600 a year in perpetuity, going out to the wild to safe places. So this isn't a new concept, kohanga. What we've done is accelerated it and kind of scaled up rapidly. So for Northland in particular, Motuora Island has been a source of kiwi to create new populations. Taiwharanui is coming on stream. And of course, you've got some islands up here in the Bay of Islands, I think, that need to be destocked that will function the same way. So for us, this really signals a paradigm shift. And this is a bit of work we've got ahead of us for Save the Kiwi, is to shift the thinking from tens of birds to hundreds of birds. It's a different scale than we worked at before, and it's going to supercharge efforts out there. So some of the things this is triggering for us. One, a tonal process. So really important for us, particularly with mana whenua at Maungatautari, is that any translocation begins with that iwi to iwi relationship. So it's done either first or in parallel with the usual kind of translocation process. Super important. The gifting of tonga goes beyond, I guess, what we kind of think of as the, post-release 3-yearly monitoring, make sure they're okay. This is a multi-generational commitment to care for these tonga, and it's important that we respect that process. How you catch hundreds of birds a year, safely transport them to new sites. We've got a lot to learn on the best way to do that the most effectively. And permits, Nari mentioned, I think we all know this is a really painful process for anyone that's ever filled in an application to try and translocate species. And we kind of go, the system doesn't really work well right now. We're going to completely break it when we try to move this many birds a year to different sites. So we're working with DOC on that. And this isn't just for our benefit. We're really hoping that through this work, we can help identify ways to make this a little smoother and easier for other groups. And that might mean, because our team has done this quite a bit, and we will continue to do it quite a lot. Some of that will mean perhaps just supporting those projects that only have to do this once or twice ever. It might mean creating templates, really helping the process. We have right now a dedicated person with the permits team within DOC to work with us. So even that's a help. It's not having to re-educate someone from within that team every time we have an application. So a bit of work to do, yeah. So kohanga, great. As I said, it's one arrow in the quiver. The holy grail of kiwi conservation, as we all kind of know, is keeping them safe where they live. So protecting them in situ is the term. So we do that as well. A lot of our Jobs for Nature funding is committed to that. It's really pest control projects. But we're also starting to engage with large land-scale landowners and doing what we can to encourage them to do pest control. So that will protect the kiwi that they already have within their rohe. And also, this one is scratching our own itch a little bit too, because we're going to be looking for more and more safe habitat to release kiwi to out of our kohanga sites. So we've just entered a relationship with Comvita, so to get them to do pest control on their sites that they either own or lease. We've just got one site we're trialing right now in the Taranaki region. And we're starting to engage more with the Forest Owners Association. And I know there's been a lot of really good work done by forest management companies throughout the country, and I know in particular up north. So it's for us just looking at what more we can do to really support those efforts, and I guess be an enabler. I am not strong on the regulatory and policy side, but my understanding is there's a bit of a disconnect between what's in the Wildlife Act and what's in the RMA. And it's kind of, I think some of the things that are in place right now are creating a little bit kind of perverse outcomes for what forest managers will do. So we're looking to try and support that process. Yep. There was mention to John Bissell, and he has some great lines that just stick with you, don't they? So on the left, John Bissell, he's based in the Wairarapa. He has a handle, the Predator Hunter. He is our National Predator Control Advisor, so we have John on a part-time basis to help advise us. He's incredibly skilled in this field. We have this mantra of better than best practice. So it's, yep, here are all the basics you can do with the SOP or the best practice that's given, but how do you really think like the animal that you're targeting? And he's kind of made a I guess, a really strong name for himself, in particular around ferrets. And so this was originally when I approached John, was to help with this, because we know that they're growing in numbers. They're showing up in places that either we didn't know they were before or they weren't before. And the continuing hot, dry summers that drive the rabbit population are driving the ferret population. So it's a growing issue. And I think for the most part, we don't have as good of idea how to control ferrets as we do stoats. And this is one of John's line too. They're not just a big stoat. It's a different animal. You have to think like the animal to know how to catch them. So we're working with John, not just ferrets, but to develop a lot of, we're developing a YouTube channel, so there'll be some instructional videos. We're working with Doc to develop an SOP specifically for ferrets. So just things to we're trying the teach a man to fish model, the how to think like John Bissell to really target the animal you're after. Next one. So ferrets and dogs, and I've chosen these two in particular in my wee little 10 minutes. Because these are two of the big threats on adults, and we've heard it from Todd. We're going to hear it again from Tineka later, the importance of protecting the adult kiwi out there, our breeding population. And as we know, ferrets and dogs are the two biggies. Car strikes if you're lucky enough to have kiwi close to urban populations. And there's a lot of ways we're going to tackle this one, and it's going to be many, many bites of this elephant. But kiwi avoidance training is one of them. So we have long since partnered with Doc to try and coordinate this program. We will continue to do so and to continue to try and lift, I guess, the standard of it. We've had a situation where kind of people have just hung their shingle and gone, oh yeah, I'm an avoidance trainer. So we've had a little bit of variation in the standards used out there. So we're really trying to bring that in and bring some quality control to the program. We've created a new brand and a standalone website, because I think there was also some confusion over whose program is it, where does it belong. But we've done that quite intentionally to make it a more marketable program to attract funding, sponsorship, whatever, to help really give this the support it needs. Doc's social science team is leading a piece of, they call it behavior change research, of course, but this is how do we appeal to dog owners, in particular in the peri-urban area. And some of it, what Todd has done on Whangarei Heads is a big part of it. It's like, how do you get the dog owners to do the right thing, if you will? And we're working, our team, Emma, and our team on the Coromandel are working just a separate little piece of work, working with council to get consistency in bylaws for containing dogs at night. Next one. Last slide. So there was mention of drought. So we've got a La Nina year forecast again, which potentially means a hot, dry summer. And I know you guys, more than any other area in the country, are aware of what that means. When you've got that birds seeking water, they're being funneled into the same little dense areas as the pests and predators. They're falling into water troughs, drowning, etc. So you probably get it too. We often get phone calls. What do we do? Can we put out a dish of food? No, it'll attract rats. So we're working with the recovery group to kind of proactively talk about what people can do or can't do. And communications isn't going to stop a drought from happening, but hopefully those basic things like having escape routes out of water troughs, etc., just the things people can do. And I know there's been a request to the recovery group that's been discussed about the islands as well, which those sites where the kiwi can't disperse and find more moisture, to make sure that we can do what we can to proactively protect them. That is it. Holy man, that is hard to go through in 10 minutes. So just as a little plug as well with the National Kiwi Hui, it's fantastic. I love coming to these regional hui, and it's, I was saying before chatting with Tineka, it's quite funny sometimes when you sit across, so myself and Isabel in the room both sit on the Kiwi Recovery Group, so we're kind of privy to, I guess, a lot of what's happening across the country, the requests that come in and stuff, and quite often when it comes to translocations or work to protect kiwi, there's a lens from Doc that's put on it is when it's private land, you know, what surety do we have into the future that that work's still going to be done, or what if the landowner sells the land, or whatever. And it just kind of makes me laugh because there's so many people in this room. They've been in this a lot longer than I have, and I feel like I've been in here a long time. So there's such longevity and consistency in the community side of this effort. It's just so cool to see. Anyway, the National Kiwi Hui is, we alternate it South and North Island, and in 2023 we're going to be on the North Island again in Taranaki. We're going back to a marae-based format, which worked really well for any of you that were at Te Teko with us. So Ngāti Tama are hosting us, and that's at Peraninihi, or White Cliffs, just north of New Plymouth. So that'll be late autumn, early winter. I know it's a big haul to get to, but again, anyone who can make it, just get yourself there. We provide everything else free of charge, just to try and encourage participation. So thank you. I'm probably over my time too. Questions after? All right.